why Giannis is a long-term fit in Milwaukee and why he can stop proposing those trades. We get some more thoughts on that from Bart Winkler coming up after this on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia. You can, of course, hear me on the Bucks Radio Network. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We continue our conversation with Bart Winkler coming up next. We are once again changing the format of the All-Star game. And
what happened to the Elon anything? Everybody like that.
Well, and we're going to Team USA versus the world, right? Which people have called for years. Great. But we're now going to it the year that Tyrese Haliburton and Jason Tatum both tear their Achilles, and you have Nikola Jokic and Giannis and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the best players in your. So we are without question headed towards another bloodbath in the All-Star game where it's, well, that didn't work. What do we got to reevaluate next year?
Well, you know what they need to reevaluate in the All-Star game is
Having
two guys.
In general?
Two guys. Jokic and Luka. Those guys get out there every All-Star game and just like tickle each other's tummies about how fun they're having. Oh, this is fun. Just focus for 15 minutes that you're in there, dude. This is about those two guys, okay? The All-Star, and look at this. The All-Star game. There is so much conversation about the All-Star game, which it's just a night where it's on, where you get to see everybody together. Why does it need to be more than that?
Where it's on this upcoming year.
Yeah. Why does it need to be more than that, though? Why can't it just be that? Why did we have to have a winner in 2001 in Major League Baseball? Why couldn't you just have said, I don't know, let another pitcher pitch again? Who cares? This is the All-Star.
Let's go another inning. Well,
who cares?
I mean, the larger discussion on why it's lost its appeal is the rings culture and players moving of like,
and they don't wear their traditional jerseys.
Well, that too. But yeah, I've already seen these super teams. I've seen the Brooklyn Nets play together. I don't need to see an all-star grouping anymore.
Just like with baseball, like I advocate for interleague play to go away. I think it cheapens the World Series and the All-Star game.
So speaking of the Achilles injury, look, and we've said this many times, the Bucks were never going to unsolicited trade Giannis. The only way he was moving on was if their conversation was had of, look, I'd like to move on. But now if you're the Bucks and you sit back and look at the East, if you have a good offseason, and to me that means keeping your key guys like a Gary Trent Jr., it at least means Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Porter Jr., Bobby Portis are all back. And then one of the two between Jericho Sims and Brook Lopez. You keep that group intact. You have some wiggle room to do some other things.
Not Lopez.
Have a good offseason.
Not Lopez, please.
Okay. It's a very polarizing topic on this show. I still advocate for Brook and think he brings a lot of value, but I think there's a walk-away figure, and I think he's going to command more than that figure is. But you look at it and you say, I mean, why can't we talk ourselves into being, things go right, a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference once again? That are we setting ourselves up for this fall? It's the Orlando Magic are the favorites to win the Eastern Conference.
You know, all of these off seasons, the Bucks seem to make a decision, but they've had a built-in excuse every year is we had injuries in the playoffs. There's still a timeline where Budenholzer's the head coach because another year with injuries in the play. What are you going to do? You just got to try to be healthy, not have injuries in the playoffs. Instead, you get hurt in the playoffs. You fire your coach, fire another coach, you bring in another coach. You trade for Dame. You make all these moves. You get rid of Drew. And now you're in this position. So they don't need to keep reacting with something big, I don't think. And with the East being as open as it is, even if it wasn't, though, you have Giannis. You have one of the best players in the sport. And if you're not going to get back good value for that,
We should
And
not.
I'm kind of in the frame of mind where you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I'd rather try to win.
So I'm not married to that 2031 first rounder.
No, I'm not married to the 2030s at all right now. But if you can try to win now with the guy, what are you going to trade Giannis for?
Well, and that's like, you're never going to get matching value for him. And the thing that I always struggled with too is, the fact that they don't control their draft going forward up until 2031. And people suggest, well, you make it a 3-team trade then and you get your picks back from the Pelicans. You're like, well, if the centerpiece is you're getting your picks back and maybe one other thing, like, I don't feel like you got anything and you just gave Giannis away. So in that sense, as long as he's cool with it, no, there's no reason to trade him and just keep him here.
There's not going to be one trade if Giannis is dealt where I think you get that alert on your phone and you go, oh,
yeah, it's
hell
not bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, good. I'm glad they did this. Good. I'm going to call my friend and say, did you see what we got?
I'm going to give up the ticket office and get season tickets.
Yeah. What do we give up? Giannis. For that? Wow. What a steal. When you have the better thing, like we're trying to trade for a Giannis. Well, we got 2 picks. One might be a Giannis. Yeah, one might be a Rashad Vaughn. What are you going to do?
One might be Thon Maker,
I was wrong on him.
A lot of us were. And it is fascinating when you think about the road that you don't take, and you go back to 2023 and the loss of the Miami Heat. And I think there was clearly a lot going on that it probably was reaching the end of its course with Mike Budenholzer in this group. But still, It's hard not to look back at that and think, look at everything that's unfolded these last few years. Like, what if we would have waited? What if we wouldn't have made a coaching change? What if you would have known, hey, we have a chance to get Drew Holiday, Dame, let's keep this core together, keep Bud, and we'll see if this is the magic elixir here. And that, to me, is what makes a team like the Cavs very interesting this summer, because I've heard it from a lot of Cleveland people too of, well, injuries. That's the only reason why we lost to the Pacers in the second round. And a part of you is like, guys, I'm here to tell you, when you start saying injuries were the reason why, before you know it, you're 3 years down that road and thinking, well, surely it can't happen to us again.
Yeah, the Cavs is when I started that series, when I started to turn on the Pacers, where they're not just getting lucky. Because, I mean, Donovan Mitchell looked tired at the end of that series. And I think the Pacers did that to him more than anything else. So you still have you could still play that like what if game, but now we are where we are. And I just don't think that there's any, because you know what, if you're going to trade Giannis and get like some players back, you might still make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then if you make the playoffs, and then you're going to do what? You're going to maybe go to 7 in a series and then be like, oh man, what do you think we would have done with Giannis? We could have opened things up here.
Could have beat that team. Yeah.
And now you got to figure that, hey, the East already has 3 superstars that are down with an Achilles. They're not going to change anything. So who's to say there's not going to be 3 more next year? So we'll get a hospital ring again. So there's so many variables and there's so many unknowns. And you have a very big known is that Giannis is a top 5 player in the world. And I'm not even happy that I said 5. So why would you trade that, especially with how things are laid out for you right now?
Time to talk to you about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you've ever checked your bank account and had to wonder, where did all my money go? You think about dining out, online shopping, and entertainment. It gets easy to lose track of those things. And that's where Monarch Money comes in as your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's because Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just messaging your money and start building wealth. You'll learn surprising insights like how much you're spending on fast food delivery weekly and monthly. That'll help you budget smarter and save more money. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's now smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com to score half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA. Get 50% off your first year. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need. Maybe you needed a plumber on the go. Well, if that person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You move on to the next name on the list. That's why you need Open Phone. They're the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. They let you manage your business calls and texts from a single app. You get a shared inbox feature that proves to be a game changer, where your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off for your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. So I know who is the least important to you, but who's the most important guy for the Bucks to retain this summer here with their group of free agents?
Well, I agree with Gary Trent. I think is a good one.
Close second, Brook.
I don't want Brook on this team. There's too many times where it's like, oh gosh, Brook is unplayable against these guys.
Okay, if Brook Lopez, and this is not going to happen, but if Brook Lopez says, you know what, I want to finish my career with the Bucks, I'm willing to take a veteran minimum, you wouldn't take that?
Well, then you can be a bench player. That's fine. I'll get 15 a night out of Brook for vet min, sure.
Well, and I think even if he's back, I think that's probably where we're headed, assuming you retain Bobby, and I wouldn't be stunned if that's your starting front court next year is Giannis and Bobby Portis, and you leaning into the way you play those final 8 games and against the Pacers.
Connaughton couldn't have done like hey, come back for 7 and we'll make sure that the next guy we sign rents in one of your
frankly
apartments.
Stunned he picked up that option when he averaged 43 points a game as a starter.
But the Bucks can't be like, we'll make sure that half the team lives in one of your rentals. We couldn't skirt the system a little bit.
Well, look, I mean, part of it
it's a beautiful property in Shorewood. I walk by it every day. Let me tell you,
I've seen the Milwaukee place. Part of it too is, I mean, isn't there something we said for like, so you just take your medicine now? Like, case in point, the Dunked On podcast, I talked about it yesterday. Their mock off season was, hey, the Bucks trade Kyle Kuzma for Drew Holiday. It's like, we're doing this again. Part of you's like, look, is Drew Holiday a better fit with his team? Sure. But I'm also getting married to a player that's 5 years older in that contract. Like, I'd rather just take my medicine now with this. And it does the same apply to Pat Connaughton. If there was the option of, what if you decline your player option and we give you a 2-year, $13 million contract? We're shaving that figure down $3 million this year, and then we got to pay you 1 more year. Like, I don't know. Wouldn't you rather just say it's a $9 million expiring contract this year?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think too, there's like just the whole Giannis conversation and taking your medicine. And if you trade Giannis, when are you going to win again?
Well, and
if you keep Giannis, get some of these contracts off the books, try to find something, find a new style, let him have the ball more. I don't know, do something. you've reignited a 2-year window again. Dame will come back. We'll see what he's like. Giannis seems to really like that situation, or at least the still idea of it. If they're not going to win a title next year.
Well, I mean, no. On paper,
but
no.
You trade Giannis,
you're definitely not.
When are you going to win a title ever again?
Well, and the league is different now. I get that. For what we just talked about before, in that, the 90s and the David Stern era, there's 4 teams realistically that have a chance to win the title, and that's it. And now, it is wide open. And I do think if you would have asked Adam Silver and injected him with truth serum, he would have told you he wants the Pacers to win, because that can really drive home that message too of, see, everybody's got a chance in this league. But that, that point you made of when are you going to win again at that level, that's the thing that I just can't state enough. And that we're the same age. You remember what it was like in the 90s. You remember those Bradley Simmer memories of those types of teams and how Milwaukee was a wasteland.
I remember going to a game. It was a series against the Hawks. It was at the Bradley Center. I think it was the game Bango did a backflip off the ladder.
Yes.
But I remember being outside the Bradley Center, and there were like 7 pop-up tents, and I was like, wow, this is so cool.
Well, we're going all out.
And then game 6, I'm one of the 60,000 people out there. Why? That's what you got to be aspiring to.
I remember, speaking of our similarities, being at Kellogg's Keg in La Crosse.
Quarter Tappers.
The night of the season opener in whatever year that was, 2005, somewhere along those lines, and asking them, hey, can you put the Bucks game on? And
I believe it's called Chuck's now, by the way.
That's a shame. And just being told no and leaving music videos where you couldn't even hear the audio. It was just visuals of the music video on the TV. No, we're not putting the Bucks on. We're just going with this. Here's CMT videos playing with no sound.
Yeah, here's music choice 943.
But you couldn't leave the city of Milwaukee. Nobody's wearing Bucks gear. Nobody cared. And it's still not a statewide team like the Packers or even the Brewers. But the difference now as to where it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, basically for all of the Bucks upbringing, save for when they won the title in 71 and the era of the 80s, you can't describe the differences and how much of that has to do with Giannis reinvigorating this franchise.
So again, I'm looking at like a future where he's not here one way or the other. Like he retired, he's 30, whatever, he retired, or he gets traded. It will be less. I mean, the fact that he's here, the fact that he's as internationally known as he is, it is ruined. I mean, it does get ruined that everyone's trying to drive him out of here, and you got to listen to all that. But I guess it's a better problem to have than, who he play for version of the whole team. I don't know. I don't think there's not going to win without him. They're not going to win without him. It took them 50 years to win after they won again. And they had to steal the Atlanta Hawks homework to draft him in the first place. So you want to willingly get rid of him for, I mean, I'm not going to look at my phone and be like, wow, yay.
Hey, they finally did it. Well, and like the other thing, which is the most important part for keeping them afloat in the short term until you can really build up your team, is, like this offseason too, when we talk about some of those names like Gary Trent Jr. and Kevin Porter Jr. If Giannis isn't on the team, hey, do you want to come back for half of the mid-level? Like, I'll look and see what I can get elsewhere. Like, oh, a really good team offered me less money, but I have a chance to play with Luka, or I have a chance to play with this guy and really win. I'm going there. Like, that's the reality you're facing. This next segment of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. You can track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. You get fast payouts as well. Makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started.
So this year, build a roster that in an open East, you can contend for a top 6 seed.
Jericho Sims, AJ Green.
While also next year then being able to say, like, all right,
now it's go time.
This is our chance.
Yeah.
So whatever decision gets you to where you're not totally punting on 26. You're not punting on it.
When you can't, yeah.
You'd be stupid to. And I know I was kind of joking before, but I'm not. You almost have to go into the playoffs and think someone's getting hurt. So that could be.
You don't have to think that.
That's how I'm approaching it. So I would, and you know what? Maybe if these guys were all healthy, I don't know. Maybe if they're in the West, it's a different story. But where they are, I think there's a lot of other teams that would be more willing to be in this position than the position they're in, even in a broken East.
Would you rather be in their spot or the Celtics spot?
I think I'd rather be here.
It's tough. It's close. The thing is, the Celtics have some young guys.
They got maybe like, what are they? They could build around Tatum and do what? Yeah. Trade Jaylen Brown, but then Tatum's not as good as Giannis.
You can do the short term, like, hey, we got to get rid of Drew, or we got to get rid of maybe even Kristaps Porzingis and start to shed some money. But eventually, it's going to come down to.
I don't think new ownership either is happy to pay the tab for the others' fine dining. You know.
Well, yeah, and eventually, it's going to come to a point where, all right, we got to trade Jaylen Brown.
Yeah. This is not the ideal situation to be in.
Right. I'm not trying to say the Bucks are in a great spot and they're better off, but I think
the narrative is, whether that's how we feel, the way Bucks fans felt after they got eliminated, and how the national media is going to look at where the Bucks are. It's not nearly as bad. It's not nearly as bad as we're being told that it is.
It's that narrative was it's over and get ready for the apocalypse.
And as a Bucks fan, it felt over. And then you saw 2 superstars go down.
You saw a superstar and a star go down.
You saw a superstar and a player who's hit some clutch shots go down.
But look, it's not, they're not in one of the best spots, but it's not as bad as it's been purported to be. And I mean, it's a much different conversation if you don't make that trade to send Chris Middleton away and bring in Kyle Kuzma. Even if it didn't work out on the court, if you don't make that trade, you're now one of 6 second apron teams going into this season. And if that's the case, then I do wonder if it's a different conversation that Giannis is considering when you look and say, well, it's another year where all we've got is minimum contracts to hand out. Gary Trent Jr. is not sticking around for that at this point. Dame just tore his Achilles, so it's going to be me and a bunch of minimum guys. Like, yeah, maybe now it is time to explore.
Well, if Giannis wants to win another title, I mean, there are other spots where he could probably win one sooner right now.
But I mean, realistically, it's the spot where you would say there's a very good chance he wins one next year would be if the Thunder kicked you a bunch of young players and picks. Other than that, that to me is the thing that doesn't get talked about enough, is what we spent the first 30 minutes or so of this show talking about, with the layout of the league and how it's moved away from this accumulation of stars. Anywhere he would go in that scenario, you're going to be one of multiple stars. And that's where the cap implications come into play. And also everybody kicks around San Antonio. I mean, Giannis has an ego too. And does Giannis want to sign up to join Victor Wembanyama's team?
Yeah. Does he want to join? Does he want to be looked at a guy who just chases after what the Thunder did? And at some point you've been somewhere long enough that you think, well, maybe I do what Duncan did and what Kobe eventually did. Maybe there's something more to that. And if you win a second one here, because they're not going to win a title every year. He's even said failure is good. It's good to fail. Failure is fine. If you tell them, hey, you're going to win another one before you retire, but you're going to be here another 8 years. Is that enough? I think it's got to be. I think it's you win 2 championships in a franchise that was barren. I think that's a pretty good career that you have for yourself.
I mean, look, as we've touched on, the reality, and I know how driven he is, but the reality is winning one with this organization is more than good enough to look back at remembering this team in the 90s and really after that 80s run, and save for that 2001 season, pretty bleak. So to bring a championship here, you want more, but that should be enough in many ways. But it is going to be a very fascinating offseason for the Bucks to see, because the other thing is, I would assume they're able to retain most of the guys that they want to because of their cap standing and because of the fact that there's just frankly not enough money out there, that there's only 2 cap space teams. Half the league has the same things available the Bucks do. And they're free agents like Gary Trent and Bobby. There are other players at their positions that are going to command more attention and money. So once that money starts to dry up, it increases the chances that you can split your mid-level and keep Gary Trent and Kevin Porter Jr. and maybe even get Bobby to come back on a deal that ends up being less annually, even though that's not what he wants. But I also think, we've seen it every year with John Horst. There's always, not always, but more often than not, there's that stealth move of, wow, I did not think the Bucks had the assets to do that. That I wouldn't rule something like that out either.
I mean, I think Bobby, if I saw that he was gone, I'd be like, and Trent, I'd be like, well, he was. I don't think losing
but
even
Brook
KPJ,
would be devastated.
Brook. I would follow whatever team he went to and become a new fan, like when Brett Favre left. I don't know that there's a lot of. I don't know there's a lot of needle movers one way or the other. Like I'm not attached to a lot of these guys. I like what they did or how they played. I like that they were better than. Even though I was told from Tim Bontemps that Kevin Porter Jr. is not going to do a dang thing in the playoffs. So I kind of want to keep him back just so I can keep playing that clip over and over.
It's going to be a very interesting offseason, and it's going to be a very interesting weekend too. I mean, do we think Crown Jewel actually happens?
I think it happens in Chicago, Illinois.
It's not a performance center Crown Jewel.
The latest I read was that some WWE production employees are stuck in the airport in Qatar. So,
well, if it is Chicago, we'll pick you up for it, and we can make our way down there. You can, of course, find Bart's podcast, hear him every night as well on the Odyssey Network, the Bart Winkler Show every night at 10 p.m.
9 to 1 Central.
Oh, my apologies.
10 to 2 Eastern. And then my side project, Into the Winklerverse.
It's always something. Good to catch up with you. I will give your regards to Dan Walsh, and should be a very, very interesting offseason here.
Hello to Dan. Yes, tell him hi. And I look forward to chatting again.
That will do it for today's episode of Locked On Bucks. For Bart, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.